Somewhere in America right now, a man in his 70s is standing in a field next to a rusted big rig that hasn't moved in 20 years, and he still won't sell it, not for any price, because the men who drove the iron of the 1970s knew something the industry has spent 50 years trying to forget, that a truck can have a soul. Today we're talking about 10 semi-trucks from that golden era, machines so legendary, so distinct, so completely irreplaceable that nothing modern can touch them. Number 10. Diamond Rio Raider. To understand the Diamond Rio Raider, you need to understand one of the most complicated corporate soap operas in American trucking history, and it's worth every second. Diamond T trucks had been built in Chicago since 1905. Rio trucks trace their lineage back to Ransom E. Olds, the same man who founded Oldsmobile, whose company dated to 1904. Both were legendary, respected names. In 1967, the White Motor Corporation merged them into Diamond Rio trucks. Then, in 1971, White sold the whole operation to Francis L. Caparet of Birmingham, Alabama, who turned it into an independent company called Diamond Rio Trucks, Inc. That newly independent company immediately went to work introducing fresh models, and the Raider, a long-hood conventional, was among the most ambitious. The Raider was available with serious powertrains including the Cummins NTC 350, the Cummins NTA 370, and the Detroit Diesel 12-volt Inevan 1N, a V12 configuration that produced well over 300 horsepower at a time when that kind of power in a production highway truck was genuinely impressive. The Raider's most distinctive visual feature was its butterfly hood, a split forward hinged hood assembly that opened outward from the center, like wings, giving mechanics access to the full engine from both sides simultaneously. It was elegant, practical, and completely unlike anything Peterbilt or Kenworth offered. When that hood came open, it looked like a mechanical flower blooming, and every driver at the truck stop turned to watch. The Diamond Rio Raider starred in the NBC television series Movin' On, which ran from 1974 to 1976 and told the story of two long-haul truckers. The show put the Raider's distinctive face on television sets across America for 2 seasons. Then, on December 6, 1974, just 3 years into its independent existence, Diamond Rio Trucks, Inc. was forced into bankruptcy. Despite new model introductions and a genuinely excellent reputation among drivers, the combination of the oil embargo, the 55 pm speed limit, and the broader economic crisis of the mid-1970s was too much to survive. The last true Lansing, Michigan-built Diamond Rios rolled out in 1975. For many fans, those 1974 models represent the last genuine Diamond Rio trucks, built in the city where the legacy of Ransom E. Olds himself began. A truck that earned a television show and carried a heritage stretching back to the dawn of the American automotive industry, and was killed not by competition but by economics, deserves to be remembered by every serious student of trucking history. Number 9. White Road Boss. There are trucks that become legends because of glamour, and there are trucks that become legends because of sheer, irreducible reliability. The White Road Boss belongs to the second category, and in its own way, that is the more impressive achievement. White Motor Corporation introduced the Road Boss in 1973 as an upgrade to their existing 4000 and 9000 series, specifically designed to improve on the durability and performance demands that working fleets were placing on their trucks. And the engineers at White delivered something genuinely substantial. The hood on the Road Boss was a wide, one-piece fiberglass tilt design, which not only looked modern and clean, but was specifically engineered to accommodate larger radiators up to 1,400 square inches to handle the thermal demands of the most powerful available engines. The standard engine was a Cummins 250, but the available options ran from 230 horsepower all the way to 350 horsepower from a selection of 10 different power plants. Cummins, Detroit Diesel, and Caterpillar configurations covering essentially every serious operator's needs. A Spicer automatic transmission was available for fleets that wanted to simplify driver training. The engine mounting position was moved forward compared to the previous series, shortening the wheelbase and improving maneuverability for tight dockwork. The cab itself was steel, heavier than aluminum, but more resistant to the kind of hard use that fleet trucks endure. And the overall design had a purposeful, no-nonsense quality that resonated strongly with fleet operators who cared more about cost per mile than chrome. What turned the Road Boss into a legend, unexpectedly, was geography. The truck was exported in significant numbers to Australia, where its rugged construction made it ideal for the country's vast outback road networks. The Road Boss became a beloved fixture on Australian highways, often fitted with bull bars to deal with kangaroo strikes, and earned a devoted following there that lasted decades after North American production ended in 1981. Then in 2015, more than 30 years after it was discontinued, the White Road Boss had a starring role in George Miller's film Mad Max Fury Road as one of the primary pursuit vehicles. That film won 6 Academy Awards. The Road Boss earned its on-screen role the same way it earned its reputation on the highway, by looking like nothing else in the world could stop it. Number 8. Western Star 4900. Most American trucking enthusiasts know Peterbilt and Kenworth as the premium West Coast truck brands of the 1970s. What many don't realize is that there was a third premium player, one born in Canada, sold through White Motors dealer network, and quietly building one of the most passionate owner-operator followings on the continent. Western Star was created by White Motor Corporation in 1967, specifically to compete with Peterbilt and Kenworth in the Western markets, where those California and Washington brands had long dominated. White recognized that a truck built with the same level of craftsmanship and customization as the Pacific Northwest giants, but offered through their existing coast-to-coast dealer network, could carve out serious market share. The Western Star 4900 was the company's flagship conventional tractor, and it was built in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada from the beginning. The 4900 offered a 123-inch BBC bumper to back of cab, giving it a hood length that was unambiguously long and unambiguously proud. Standard and optional powertrains included Detroit diesel, Cummins, and Caterpillar engines across a wide power range. What made the 4900 extraordinary in the 1970s was the level of standard quality. Western Star used aluminum extensively in the cab construction to reduce weight and improve corrosion resistance. The interior, even in base specification, offered more thoughtful driver ergonomics than most competitors. And because volumes were relatively modest, this was never a mass-market truck. Each 4900 received a level of build attention that high-volume manufacturers simply couldn't match. When White Motor Corporation was acquired by Volvo in 1980, Western Star was deliberately separated from the deal and became a fully independent company. That independence allowed it to maintain its identity and its values through the decades ahead. Western Star was eventually acquired by Daimler Trucks North America in 2000, and the 4900 series continues in production to this day, making it one of the longest-running heavy truck model lines in North America. The 1970s 4900s, however, built in Kelowna by craftsmen who took personal pride in every unit they assembled, represent something the modern version, for all its engineering excellence, can only look back on. You can buy a new 4900 today. You cannot buy a new one built the way they built them in 19... Number 7. Autocar DC series. Most of the trucks on this list were highway tractors, machines designed to pull trailers coast to coast across the American interstate system. The Autocar DC was something fundamentally different, and in being different, it became one of the most important heavy trucks in American industrial history. Autocar traces its origins to 1897, making it the oldest surviving motor vehicle brand in the Western Hemisphere. The company built the first motor truck ever produced for sale in North America in 18... By the 1970s, Autocar had been building severe-duty industrial trucks for over 7 decades, and their DC series represented the pinnacle of that tradition. The DC Conventional, first introduced by Autocar in 1939 as its premier severe-duty diesel-powered work truck, continued through the 1960s and into the 1970s as the backbone of Autocar's lineup. These were trucks built for construction sites, mining operations, logging yards, and refuse hauling, applications where a standard highway tractor would be destroyed within months. The DC was built to last in those conditions for years. The frame rails, the axle specifications, the cab construction, everything was heavier, stronger, and more purpose-built than anything in the highway sector. In the 1960s and 1970s, Autocar custom-engineered some of the most extreme trucks ever built for vocational use. The AP-19T, built during this era, featured a V12 Cummins diesel engine, a front axle rated at 3,000 pounds and rear tandem axles rated at 200,000 pounds, giving it a gross combination weight of 900,000 pounds. That is not a typo, 900,000 pounds. The AP19T was a special order, but it illustrates the engineering philosophy that ran through every autocar of the era. If the job demands it, build a truck that can do it. For more standard vocational applications, the DC series was beloved by fleets for a specific reason that no modern truck can fully replicate. Autocar built each truck to the customer's specification, by hand, one at a time. In 2022, a journalist visiting the modern Autocar plant in Birmingham, Alabama, noted that there are no robots, no moving assembly line, just workers taking as much time as the job requires to build each unit correctly. That tradition is alive today because of the culture established in the 1970s. Autocar announced in 2019 the relaunch of the DC conventional that had been the core of Autocar's business from the 1950s through the 1970s. The fact that they brought back the DC after decades away is the clearest possible statement about how important those original trucks were to the company's identity. Number 6. Marmon 57P Conventional. If someone told you that a truck manufacturer based in Garland, Texas, built roughly 100 trucks per year, entirely by hand, and charged prices that made Peterbilt look affordable, and that the people who owned those trucks called them the Rolls-Royce of American trucks, you might think they were exaggerating. They were not. The Marmon Motor Company of Denton, Texas, later Garland, was one of the most unusual enterprises in American heavy truck history. Founded in 1963 as a revival of the historic Marmon automotive name, Marmon Trucks operated with a philosophy that was fundamentally at odds with everything the major manufacturers were doing. Where Kenworth and Peterbilt were building hundreds of trucks per week, Marmon was building perhaps 2 per week, with craftsmen assembling each unit with the kind of personal attention that the word bespoke was invented to describe. In 1973, Marmon introduced the conventional model to complement their existing cab-over lineup. The conventional, which would eventually become the dominant model, featured extensive use of aluminum and fiberglass throughout the bodywork, making Marmon trucks significantly lighter than steel-bodied competitors without sacrificing structural integrity. The aluminum construction also meant dramatically superior corrosion resistance, so Marmon trucks aged far more gracefully than iron competitors. The P designation on models like the 57P stood for premium, the owner-operator specification, as distinct from the F fleet designation. Premium Marmon trucks were fitted with every luxury option the company offered: air ride suspension, full instrumentation, premium interior trim, and whatever custom details the buyer wanted. Because every Marmon was built to order, there were essentially no 2 identical trucks. Engine options in the 1970s. Marmon were extensive. Buyers could specify Cummins NTC configurations, Detroit Diesel 8V71 and 12V71 setups, or Caterpillar 3406 engines. One documented 1985 Marmon 57P, representative of the peak era specification, ran a Cummins NTC 400 Big Cam 2 backed by an 18-speed transmission on a 200-inch wheelbase with New-Way air ride suspension. Owners reported these trucks accumulating 800,000 miles on the original drivetrain with proper maintenance. Marmon trucks earned devoted loyalty, not because they were the cheapest option or the most powerful option, but because they were the most personal option. In an industry increasingly dominated by fleet economics and volume production, a Marmon was a statement that the driver behind the wheel was an owner, a craftsman, a professional who had chosen their equipment with the same deliberateness a surgeon chooses their instruments. The last Marmon truck was built in 1997, when Space Corporation, which had operated the Garland facility, leased out the final assembly line to Navistar's Paystar division. The final truck's passing was mourned by a community of devotees who still gather annually in Texas to celebrate the brand. Every modern custom-spec semi-truck, every premium owner-operator build, owes its philosophical ancestry to what Marmon was doing in Garland, Texas, when everyone else was racing toward standardization. Number 5. White Road Commander 2. The cab-over era of American trucking produced some genuinely brilliant engineering, and the White Road Commander 2, introduced in 1975 as a modernization of the original Road Commander, represents one of the finest expressions of what a 1970s cab-over could be. White Motor Corporation introduced the Road Commander in 1972 as a heavy-duty COE tractor specifically designed for long-haul interstate work under the length regulations of the era. The original Road Commander was a solid truck, but in 1975, White substantially improved it with the Road Commander 2, and the changes were significant enough that drivers and fleet operators recognized it immediately as a genuinely different machine. The Road Commander 2 featured a split wraparound windshield, a design element that dramatically increased forward visibility compared to the flat windscreen of most competitors. For drivers spending 12-hour days behind the wheel, that panoramic forward view reduced fatigue and improved safety in ways that were genuinely meaningful. The cab was all aluminum, hydraulically tilted for engine access, a design that made Cummins, Caterpillar, and Detroit diesel power plants accessible for maintenance without the physically demanding effort required by older designs. The available engine range in 1977 ran from 90 to 450 horsepower, a spectrum wide enough to satisfy everyone from fuel economy-focused fleet operators to owner-operators who wanted every horsepower they could get their hands on. The frame was bolted high-tensile steel, chosen for its combination of strength and repairability in the field, where a cracked weld on a conventional frame could sideline a truck for days, but a properly torqued bolted joint could be serviced almost anywhere. What distinguished the Road Commander 2 further was its cab design's longevity. White built the same fundamental cab architecture across multiple model lines. The Road Commander 2, the Road Boss 2, and the Road Expeditor 2 all shared this cab, which meant an enormous supply of parts, a wide network of technicians familiar with its quirks, and operational reliability that fleet operators could plan around. When Volvo acquired White in 1980, they continued selling the Road Commander cab, rebranded under the White High Cab Over name, through 1983. Western Star also sold versions in Canada and Western states with Western Star badging, keeping the basic design alive even longer. That durability in the market is the most honest testament to how well thought out the original design was. Number 4. International Paystar 5000. Every truck on this list so far has been a highway tractor or a premium owner-operator rig. The International Paystar 5000 is neither. It is something else entirely, a purpose-built heavy-duty vocational machine that defined what it meant to work for a living in the 1970s construction industry. International Harvester introduced the Paystar line in 1972 as a dedicated heavy vocational series separate from their standard highway trucks. Where highway tractors were engineered for speed, fuel economy, and driver comfort over long distances, the Paystar was engineered for a single overriding requirement: maximum payload in the harshest possible conditions, every single day, for as long as the job demanded. The Paystar 5000 was the backbone of the series, a twin-steer, triple-axle configuration, available in both conventional and cab-over layouts, with front axle ratings that could handle loads that would destroy a standard highway tractor's steering geometry within weeks. Engine options included Detroit diesel configurations, Cummins NH Series and NTC Series engines, and Caterpillar 33006 and 3406 power plants, all chosen for their durability under continuous high-load operation rather than peak horsepower output. What made the Paystar 5000 irreplaceable in the 1970s construction boom was its straightforward repairability. On a construction site 50 miles from the nearest city, a truck that breaks down and cannot be repaired by a competent mechanic with standard tools is not just an inconvenience, it is a catastrophic disruption to the entire project schedule. The Paystar was built with that reality in mind. Its mechanical systems were robust, well understood, and supported by International's vast dealer and parts network. The Paystar 5000 also served as the platform base for some of the most exotic custom-built Marmon trucks of the later 1970s and early 1980s. Marmon sourced certain cab components and design elements from the International Paystar as it evolved its conventional models, giving the Garland-built luxury trucks a structural foundation with genuine vocational credentials. Modern heavy construction trucks are technically superior in almost every measurable respect. But when an old-timer who ran a Paystar 5000 through a decade of construction work in the 1970s tells you it never let him down, that's not nostalgia. That's an engineering verdict. Number 3. Autocar A64. If the DC series represented Autocar's vocational side, The A64 represented something else, an aluminum-framed, purpose-built heavy conventional that was doing things in the late 1960s and through the 1970s that the rest of the industry was still trying to figure out. The Autocar A series was introduced in 1957, built around a philosophy of weight reduction through extensive use of aluminum in the frame and cab construction. In an era when most heavy trucks used conventional steel throughout, the aluminum A series was genuinely innovative. Aluminum frames were lighter, meaning more payload capacity at the same gross vehicle weight and far more resistant to the corrosion that devastated steel frames over years of operation in salt-treated winter roads or coastal environments. The A64 configuration, the long conventional model, was particularly well suited to logging and heavy haul applications, where the combination of extreme weight, rough road conditions, and extended service lives made aluminum construction not just desirable but practically necessary for long-term economic viability. Logging operators in the Pacific Northwest, where the terrain and road conditions could destroy a conventional steel-framed truck in a fraction of the service life it might achieve elsewhere, adopted the A64 enthusiastically. Engine options on the A64 in the 1970s included the Cummins NTC series and Detroit Diesel 8V71 and 12V71 configurations. Powerful, proven power plants that logging and heavy haul operators already knew intimately. The aluminum tilt hood provided excellent engine access for the kind of intensive maintenance that heavy vocational trucks require. And Autocar's reputation for building trucks specifically for the toughest applications available meant that A64 buyers knew they were getting something engineered for their use case, not adapted from a highway tractor. The Autocar bowtie emblem, which appeared on the grille of every A-series truck, had been part of the brand's identity since 1919. By the time the 1970s A64 was working Pacific Northwest logging roads, that emblem represented over 5 decades of severe-duty truck building. It didn't just identify the manufacturer, it made a promise about what the machine could do. Number 2. Diamond Rio Giant. Earlier we talked about the Diamond Rio Raider and its company's bankruptcy in December 1970. That might seem like the end of the story. It was not even close to the end. In 1975, 1 year after Diamond Rio's bankruptcy, a man named Loyal Osterland and his partner Ray Housel bought the rights to the Diamond Rio name and established production in their Harrisburg, Pennsylvania facility, originally a dealership and maintenance operation. And from that modest rebirth, they built something that became one of the most respected heavy-duty conventionals of the late 1970s and beyond. The Diamond Rio Giant, as the new conventional model became known, was built around the steel Autocar cab, which Osterland's team sourced and adapted to create a heavy-duty tractor with the Diamond Rio nameplate. The choice of the Autocar cab was significant. Autocar's cab construction had a long-standing reputation for durability and driver comfort, and it gave the Giant a solid, proven foundation. Engine options came from Cummins and Detroit Diesel, the two most trusted names in American heavy trucking, with power outputs appropriate to the heavy haul and long-distance work that Giant buyers typically required. What made the Giant's story so extraordinary was the circumstances of its creation. Osterland was not a major manufacturer. He was not a division of a Fortune 500 corporation. He was an enthusiast and a businessman who believed in the Diamond Rio name and the community of drivers who loved it, and he was willing to take a serious financial risk to keep it alive. The Giant was built in relatively modest numbers, with each truck receiving personal attention that a larger operation could not have afforded. The Diamond Rio Giant lasted in production through various owners and configurations into the early 1990s. Nearly 2 decades after the original company's bankruptcy. That survival is a testament to the loyalty of the drivers and fleet operators who kept ordering them, and to the value of a brand name that carried genuine meaning in the trucking community. No modern manufacturer has that story. No modern truck was born from a bankruptcy, revived by believers, and kept alive by the sheer loyalty of the men who drove it. The Diamond Rio Giant is proof that in the trucking world, reputation is worth something that balance sheets cannot fully capture. Number 1. Mack Cruise-Liner. For our number 1 position, we have gone to a truck that the mainstream always overlooked, because Mack's R model was so dominant, so legendary, and so deeply embedded in the public imagination that its sibling never quite got the recognition it deserved. That ends today. The Mack Cruise-Liner was introduced in 1976 and it was Mack's attempt to build a dedicated long-haul highway tractor that combined the engineering reputation of the R model with an entirely new level of driver comfort and aerodynamic refinement. Where the R model was a working-class hero, blunt, tough, purposeful, the Cruise-Liner was Mack in a tailored suit. The most immediately striking thing about the Cruise-Liner was its hood. Where the R model had a short, blunt nose, the Cruise-Liner wore a long, sloped hood that gave it a profile closer to a Peterbilt 359 than to any previous Mack. That hood was fiberglass, lightweight, corrosion-resistant, and finished to a level of quality that signaled immediately that this was not a work truck. This was a highway machine. The Cruise-Liner was available with Mack's own proprietary engines, including the ENDT 676 Maxidine, but also offered Cummins and Detroit diesel options for buyers who wanted the specific characteristics of those power plants. The full range of power outputs available in the mid to late 1970s ran from approximately 237 to 400 horsepower, covering every conceivable long-haul application. The Maxitorque transmission, developed alongside the Maxidine, remained available and remained revolutionary, allowing full power delivery with fewer gear changes than any competing transmission system. Inside the Cruise-Liner, Mack made a serious investment in driver quality of life. The cab was wider than the R models, giving the driver genuinely more room to work and rest. An available sleeper configuration provided reasonable living space for long-haul operators. The dashboard was logically laid out, with instrumentation that gave drivers the information they needed without the visual chaos that some competitors offered. Mack's traditional attention to detail, every component chosen or built for durability rather than minimum cost, was visible throughout. What set the Cruise-Liner apart from the field was the combination of that Mack heritage with a genuine commitment to modernity. By 1976, some in the industry had begun to write Mack off as a brand that built trucks for construction fleets and city operations. Tough, yes, but not a serious highway competitor against the long-hood Peterbilts and Kenworths that owner-operators were gravitating toward. The Cruise-Liner answered that perception directly. It said, "We are Mack and we can build the best highway truck in America." The response was significant. Fleet operators who trusted Mack's durability reputation but had wanted a more refined long-haul option adopted the Cruise-Liner enthusiastically. Owner-operators who wanted the gold bulldog on the hood of a highway-capable machine found in the Cruise-Liner exactly what they'd been waiting for. Production of the Cruise-Liner continued through 1985, when it was replaced by the Mack MH Ultraliner. During its 9-year production run, the Cruise-Liner established that Mack was not a one-dimensional manufacturer, that the company which had revolutionized diesel engine technology with the Maxidine could also produce a truck refined enough for the most demanding long-haul applications. The modern trucking industry has Mack trucks, now owned by Volvo, continuing under the Bulldog emblem. Modern Mack Anthem and Superliner models carry the heritage forward with considerably more technology and considerably better fuel efficiency. But none of them carry the weight of what the Cruise-Liner represented in 1976, a legendary manufacturer choosing to prove on the open road that they still had something to say. That moment of proof, that willingness to step outside the comfort of a dominant identity and reach for something more, is what elevates the Mack Cruise-Liner from a fine truck to a symbol. And symbols are the one thing no modern manufacturer can manufacture. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.